Good afternoon, students. Once more, you are welcome to physics class. And our major focus for today is to discuss the correction to our test 1 question, and also to have discussion on each of the question. So this YouTube class is mainly for us to do correction and also discuss the question that we answer. Please, I would like you to pay attention. The first question here says, what causes the change in direction when light travels from air into glass? The answer to this question is the speed of light changes. Remember, we say refraction is the change in the direction of light when it travels from one medium to the other. So when the speed of light changes, it causes change in direction of light. Number 2, this diagram says the diagram shows ray of light passing through a converging lens, which labeled arrow represents the focal length of the lens. I repeat again. The diagram shows ray of light passing through a converging lens, which labeled arrow represents the focal length of the lens. The answer is D, but we need to know what exactly is focal length. So let's go to our discussion. Discussion here says focal length is the distance between the center of the convex lens or a concave mirror and the focal point of the lens or mirror. The point where parallel ray of light meet or converge. I will also refer you to your notes. The diagram here, you see it in the note pasted on the portal. So looking at this, study this diagram very well. It will show you what a focal length looks like, so that you should be able to identify a focal length. I believe you can be able to identify the object distance from here and the image distance. The object distance is O and the image distance is represented with letter I. You can see what the focal length is. The focal point again. The focal point of the lenses. The focal point. This is the point on the lenses where the ray of light appear to converge for convex lens, while diverge for a convex lens after refraction. The distance from the focal point, the pole, is called the focal length. I go back again. The distance from the focal point to the pole is called the focal length. I also want to refer you to your note deeply for all this. All the diagram needed are also discussed in your note. This question says, the diagram shows 4 sources of wave. Which sources produce longitudinal wave? In our class, we discuss what waves are, and we are able to look at the different classes of wave, which we say we can have a transverse wave and longitudinal wave. The only wave that is longitudinal here is our speaker, because all sound waves are longitudinal in nature, and it's only speaker that produces a sound wave from all the options given. So the answer here is C. But I will go further to explain what longitudinal wave is or are. Longitudinal waves which travels in direction parallel to the vibration of the medium. Example are sound waves. So all sound waves are longitudinal wave. And the only source of sound wave from the option given is the loudspeaker. Again, for further clarification, waves can either be mechanical wave or electromagnetic wave. And mechanical waves are further divided into 2. We have longitudinal wave and transverse waves. Now, we call them mechanical wave because they require material medium for propagation. And they are called electromagnetic wave because they do not require material medium for propagation. So examples of electromagnetic wave are light wave, microwave, infrared, X-ray, ultraviolet rays, and radio wave. One example of mechanical wave, I say, Mechanical wave require material medium for propagation, while electromagnetic wave does not require a material medium for propagation. Mechanical wave are further divided into two. We have longitudinal wave and transverse wave, and all sound waves are longitudinal in nature. This question says, light passes into glass block. Which is the angle of refraction? First, we must be able to identify the various parts. Here, from this diagram, we have your normal, we have your angle of incidence, and we have your angle of refraction. And we know that when light travels from a medium of different density, refraction occurs. So the angle of refraction is the angle between the normal and the refracted ray. The angle between the normal and the refracted ray is your angle of refraction. So from here, the option will be option A. I also want you to study this diagram as many times as possible until you have a good understanding of the question. This also explains that there are conditions for bending of ray of light as it travels from one medium to other. Number one is that light travels from less dense medium to a denser medium. These are one of the conditions in which refraction can take place. Now, this question says, which diagram shows what happens when a ray of white light passes through a prism? We have option A, option B, option C, and option D. And the answer is option D. So let's go to our discussion slide. Why is it option D? Number one, if you study the diagram very well, you discover that the light spread at the point B. So that is why option D is the correct answer. So when we say dispersion, dispersion simply means the breaking of white light into several components when light passes through a glass prism. And these components are red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. And the most deviated is red, and the least deviated is violet. I'm giving you additional information on the question. So the question says, which diagram show what happens when a ray of light passes through a prism? The answer is D. If you study this diagram very well, it will show you why D is the answer. And I went further to explain what dispersion of light is a separation of white light into seven components when it passes through a glass prism. And I say the most deviated is red and the least deviated is violet. Now, this slide also gives us a good explanation of what dispersion is. The series of color into which white light is split is called spectrum. And since it is possible to see those colors with our naked eye, the spectrum is called visible spectrum. So it is called visible spectrum because we can see them with our naked eye. The color of visible spectrum are violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, and red. I've mentioned that before. And we say red light suffer the least amount of deviation, while violet suffer. White light is made to pass. Let me go again. Red light suffers the least amount of deviation, while violet the most, when white light is made to pass through a prism. Formation of spectrum of 7 colors, showing white light. White light is a combination of 7 separate colors. So it is important for us to know that white light is the combination of 7 separate colors. And this color can be seen when white light is meant to pass through glass prism. So please, I will also refer you to your note because the detailed explanation of this is inside your note too. If there are any diagram that I cannot present on this YouTube class, please always refer to your note for more detailed explanation. Now, dispersion occurs because different color of light travel at slightly different speed through transparent medium. The what is responsible for dispersion is different in the speed of light as they travel from one medium to the other. This question says the point labeled F are the principal focus of a lens A beam of parallel light is incident on the lens. Which diagram shows the path of the light after it passes through the lens? The diagram that shows this is our option B. And this is, if you study this diagram, it will give you reason why option B is your answer. Now, refraction of light through a converging lens. When a beam of light passes through this type of lens, what happens? We are meant to believe that they come together at a point, and that point is called the focal point. While for a diverging lens, this light sprays a divergent lens or a concave lens, this light spreads out. Now, I also explain what focal point is here. This is the point on the lens where the ray of light appear to converge for a convex or diverge for concave after refraction. So when light passes through a converging lens, what happens? And when light passes through a diverging lens, what happens? They produce different type of effects. Now this diagram says a boy sees a fish in the lake. Which labeled part is taken by the light traveling from the fish to the boy's eyes? The correct option here is C. But my slide again will make more explanation on this. Now we can see the incident ray, we can see the normal, and we can see the refracted ray. And I say the angle of incident is the angle between the incident ray and the normal. So what happens? Now when light is traveling from air to water, and when light is traveling from water to air, different things happen. So when light is traveling from air to water, the angle of the refracted ray always bends towards the normal. But when it is the opposite, it bends away from the normal. It is very important for us to know when the refracted ray will bend towards the normal and when it will bend away from the normal. It will bend towards the normal when light is traveling from air to water, but it will bend away from the normal when light is traveling from water to air. Remember, water is denser than air. This question says the diagram shows a ray of monochromatic light passing through a semicircle. What is the refractive index for the glass? Remember, we say in our previous class that the refractive index is the ratio of sine of angle of incidence to the sine of angle of refraction. And Snell's law that says that this is constant for any given medium. Applying that theory and using this formula, our refractive index will be 1.56, and hence D will be our answer. This question says, which property of sound wave affects the loudness of the sound? So the property of a sound wave that affects the loudness of the sound is the amplitude. Amplitude affects the loudness of the sound. I repeat again, the property of a sound wave that affects the loudness of the sound is the amplitude. This one says, which contain only vector quantity? From the option given, the vector quantity that we have here are acceleration, force, momentum, and velocity. This is the only one that contains vector quantity. Remember, in our previous class, we discussed the difference between scalar quantity and vector quantity. I will say scalar quantity are quantity that has magnitude but does not have direction, while vector quantities are quantities that have both magnitude and direction. So acceleration, force, momentum, and velocity, all these has both magnitude and direction. Hence, they are called vector quantities. Electricity can be generated using different energy sources. Which energy sources is used to generate electricity without needing any moving parts? The only source that does not require any moving part is the solar. Hence, the option is C. One of the effects of passing a ray of white light through a prism is to split the light into color. What is the name given to this effect? I've mentioned this before. When white light passes into a glass prism, it is separated into different components, and the phenomenon is called dispersion. The options we have here are deviation, dispersion, reflection, and refraction. It is not deviation, it is not reflection, it is not refraction, but it is dispersion. The bouncing of light is what we call a reflection, and the change in direction of light rays is what we call a refraction. For deviation, I would like you to read more on that. So in our Zoom class, I will call you to explain what deviation is for me. Now, this question says, a tunnel has a length of 150 kilometers. A car takes 20 minutes to travel between the two ends of the tunnel. What is the average speed of the car? We should know the formula for average speed, which is distance over time. Now, the only thing that makes this task a bit difficult is the fact that we have our distance in kilometer and we have our time in minutes. But all the options are given in kilometer per hour. So for us to solve this question correctly, we need to convert minutes to kilometer. And when you do that and use the formula, speed is equal to distance over time. If you do that, it will give you 150 kilometers per hour. Which statement is correct? Mass is a force measured in kilogram. No, mass is a force. Mass is not even a force. So mass is a force measured in kilogram. Mass is not a force. Mass is a force measured in Newton. Mass is not a force. Weight is a force measured in kilogram. Weight is a force, but it's not measured in kilogram. But the correct answer is weight is a force measured in Newton. So the correct answer to this question is option D. A woman tunes a radio to a station broadcasting on 200 meter. What does the 200 meter tell her about the radio wave? It does not tell her about the amplitude, frequency, or speed, but it tells her more about the wavelength of the radio. This question says the critical angle for glass air boundary is which diagram? Which show the correct part of light ray? The correct part is C, because we say critical angle is the angle of incidence where the angle of refraction is 90 degrees. And the only diagram that proves this is diagram C. So critical angle is the particular angle of incidence where the angle of refraction is 90 degrees. And for this to occur, light must travel from an optically more dense medium to an optically less dense medium. That's the condition in which we have our critical angle. This diagram give more insight on how to identify and how to construct critical angle at any particular time. But when the angle of incidence is greater than critical angle, we have what we call a total internal reflection. We've discussed this. I'm also laying more emphasis on it. Let me explain again. The particular angle of incidence in which the angle of refraction is 90 degrees is called the critical angle. But when the angle of incidence is greater than the critical angle, we have what we call total internal reflection. This slide also gives you more explanation on Snell's law and on critical angle. Study it, and if you have any question, please feel free to post it to me on the school portal. This diagram says a thin converging lens is used to produce on the screen a focused image of a candle. The screen and the lens are moved back first, and various focused images are produced on the screen. Which statement is always true? The statement that is always true is that the image is inverted. Now, what do we mean by an inverted image? Lateral inversion means the apparent reversal of the mirror's image, left and right, when compared with the object. Lateral just means sideways. In a plane mirror, each point on the image is as far behind the mirror plane as the corresponding point on the object is in front. Now, laterally inverted means the left and the right side of the image are interchanged. Real, inverted. Real. Inverted means the image is upside down. A mirror forms a lateral inverted image, which cannot be caught on the screen because it is virtual. A virtual image is always erect. So this is what a lateral inversion looks like. This question says, which property are reflected at the plane surface? Which wave are reflected at the plane surface? Which property of the wave is changed by reflection? The property of the wave that is changed is its direction. The diagram shows a converging lens forming the image of an object. Which statement about the image is correct? The statement that is correct is that it is virtual and can be seen by an eye at Y. This question says, calculate the resistance of a filament of a lamp rated 240 volt and 60 watt. I also need you to study this formula very well and also memorize it. It will help us in solving different questions on electrical energy and electrical power. So the formula to use is P is equals to V squared over R, or P is equals to V times V over R, where V is our voltage in volt, and R is our resistance in ohm. When we do that, it will give us 960 ohms. At this point in time, I want to say thank you for your attention. As I always say, if you have any question, please feel free to post it to me on the school portal. Thank you and God bless you.